Because at the end of the day, we're contacting humans.
Right.
And if our artificial intelligence gets to be too robotic, it's not going to be effective.
This is Velocitize Talks, and I'm Andy North. I'm joined today by Chris Simental, co-founder and strategist at Ripe Media. Chris, thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Tell us a little bit about Ripe and some of the exciting things that you guys are working on now.
We started the company in 2003 as a partnership. It was me and my then girlfriend, Heather, who's a co-founder. Mm-hmm. And 2006, we incorporated and got serious once we realized that we could make it work and not just have it be a moonlighting gig. Mm-hmm. And we've been going strong ever since. We're still a very small team. There's not very many of us in the office, but lately people have been working more and more remotely. But we are very agile. We pride ourselves on being able to go with the flow a lot, and basically taking in clients' needs and wants and turning that into action, as opposed to sticking with the same process every time. Mm-hmm. And being like this large organization that kind of moves slowly. That's
fascinating. You mentioned one of your favorite areas, I guess, in marketing is content marketing. Are you guys doing some work there?
In the early days of building websites, you either had a blog or you had a website. And I don't think people realized that you could combine the two until it was, time when blogs were starting to get a lot more traffic than just a website with 3 or 4 pages. Mm-hmm. Websites, minimal websites, 4 or 5 pages as a brochure is great if someone already knows who you are. But if people are trying to find you through other avenues, through the topics that you discuss, through the services that you provide, and you don't have content on your website that draws them in through those searches, then you're not going to be found. So right. It's interesting to see the sites with fewer pages start to drop in their rankings, even though at one point they may have had a super high ranking. Mm-hmm. If you don't keep adding content, you don't keep at it, those are going to drop, and the pages, the sites that keep adding content are the ones that are going to naturally rise higher in the search results.
So speaking of blogs, you wrote a great blog recently where you talked about the top 10 marketing trends for 2019.
Yeah.
And AI was top of the list. Do you believe that marketers have truly harnessed AI yet, or is it still somewhat out there a little bit?
I'm not sure AI can ever be fully harnessed because it's constantly changing. That's one of the reasons why it's so exciting. Mm-hmm. But it's also very frustrating for that same reason. But marketers have done a lot in the way of marketing automation, which on some levels is artificial intelligence. Mm-hmm. And what's great about it is that it gives you an opportunity not just to stay more in contact with your audience, but to contact them at the most opportune moments when they have a need and when they are considering your services, your product. AI gives us an opportunity to know when those moments are and that we can best target those moments. I think one thing to keep an eye on as we start to automate more and more things is to maintain a human-centric position on it. Because at the end of the day, we're contacting humans.
Right.
And if our artificial intelligence gets to be too robotic, it's not going to be effective.
Your blog also mentioned voice, obviously, as being a big marketing trend. Do you feel like marketers perhaps lose a little bit of their brand image when people are searching by voice and doing a lot of voice work?
Yeah, it's a really big concern because there's no visual there. Right? And you don't have time, and let's say someone searches for a service that you provide, and you might have an opportunity to get a blurb in there in the audio stream about your company. Well, you don't have time to provide any background or to say we've been in business for X number of years and we also do this, this, and that.
They don't play a commercial before it or anything.
You might have seen our logo on this place and that place, but you can't see the logo in voice.
Right.
So that makes me think that in the smart speaker realm, marketing tactics might have to be a little bit more old school before the days of websites, where maybe it's more about what you say, or maybe it's more about how you say it, or maybe jingles got to make a comeback. You know what I'm saying?
That'd be great. There were some great jingles.
Right. We don't hear jingles anymore.
Right, right. You talked about websites, and been curious if, would love to get your thoughts on, are websites starting to wane? Are apps, do you see apps taking over from a marketing perspective, or do you feel like there will always be a place for websites in some way or other?
The thing about websites is that it's the one place where you get to control, where you get the most control over your brand messaging, the experience that visitors get when they come to it, and how you tell your story and how you link all the pieces together. I remember when Facebook pages came out, and we saw a lot of brands launching their digital presence only through Facebook page. But what they found was that there wasn't as much engagement because there wasn't as much content.
Right.
And on top of that, they weren't being found by people who were searching for their services and didn't know them by name already. Because guess what? You can't post blog posts on Facebook. You can have a little blurb about us or something like that, but you can't have pages and pages about your services and what you do and what you provide. Mm-hmm. So a Facebook page is a great place for a brand that's already known, but for someone who's just starting out, it actually gets you kind of pigeonholed in a way. Mm-hmm. You don't get the breadth of search engine traffic that you would when you can build out a proper website.
So are you advising some of your clients, let's say they just feel they have to have an app for one reason, maybe e-commerce or what have you. Are you advising them don't cannibalize your brand by just exclusively having the app? Make sure you have a website and a Facebook page perhaps.
Yeah, exactly. I'm a huge fan of bringing in small clusters of people through every means available. Mm-hmm. So if you have a Facebook page and you've only got 200 likes there, well, those are people who are engaged in the Facebook realm. So there's no reason why you shouldn't have that. Same with Twitter. If you get some followers on Twitter and they're avid followers, regardless of the number, keep that channel going. Mm-hmm. And if you do it right, it'll grow. So we really, when someone comes and says, well, I want a website and I want an app, we spend a lot of time discussing the aspects of the app and how it's going to be different, and more importantly, how you're going to market it. Because there's a lot of clutter in the app stores. Mm-hmm. And again, if someone recognizes your brand and they search for you in the app store, you're great. But if someone's searching for a competitor's brand, they're not going to find you. If they're searching for a generic sort of service that the app provides, they're not going to find you.
Another one of the technologies that you referenced in your blog, which was great, by the way, I really enjoyed reading it.
Oh, thanks.
As if you can't tell, was personalized emails.
Yeah.
What do you mean by personalized emails? And second part of that question is, do you feel like marketers are sort of lurching towards personalization? Have they gotten it right yet? Mm-hmm. There's, with the Spotifys and Netflix of the world, there is some personalization going on, but is it where it will be in 5 years?
Again, back to the, personalization is a form of automation. Like if you're sending out a personalized email, you're not crafting each one individually. You just can't. There's no way. Mm-hmm. You're sending it through some algorithm that will split your main list into separate lists and will address people within it and maybe put in some custom content that's kind of preset already for a certain group of people, mm-hmm. not necessarily at the individual level.
We're sort of getting there with some elements of personalization, you might say. Particularly around emails and so forth. It's sort of the evolution of the broadcast email, mm-hmm. I guess. And are there any technologies out there that you mentioned several in your blog? Are there any other ones that you're excited about? You see sort of gaining traction with marketing and digital marketers?
What I think is one thing that I've come across recently is that this idea of micro-influencers, and these are people who don't necessarily have a lot of followers, but they have extremely high engagement with those followers. Mm-hmm. And that's what you hope is happening when you hire an influencer that has millions of followers, but it's not necessarily what's going on. Sometimes they've got a bunch of followers and there's say you've got millions of followers, but only 0.01% of them actually engage with your posts. So they're just not as interested in what's going on.
It's interesting. We've talked with some of our other guests about have social influencers kind of jumped the shark, if you will? Have they lost all credibility because people now know they're just shilling for a brand?
Yeah.
Do you feel that way, or is there, perhaps with these micro-influencers, there's still an avenue for marketers to use that?
I think there's still an avenue. I think that it remains to be seen how it will correct itself. But I know there's conversations in high schools right now about kids planning their influencer careers. And they're starting to fake some of this stuff to make it look like they're being endorsed. To the extent of, like, you know, borrowing a car and then posting something on Instagram saying, and actually being very explicit that it was given to you by the brand, when in fact it wasn't. Mm-hmm. And then they go and show their friends, and the friends are like, oh man, you got more likes than me and more hits, and like they think that's the beginning of a career, but because it's based on like, you know, untrue information, it's actually diminishing the possibility of them having a career in this, because prices are dropping now, mm-hmm. that there's so many influencers, and there's questionability around, is it false, is it not?
You have a fascinating background as a serial entrepreneur, and you started at a young age, as I understand, with your own business.
Yeah.
Was it selling homework?
Yes.
Selling pre-done homework or something?
Yes. So my brilliant idea was that, because I noticed in my class and other classes in the grade level, there were kids who didn't want to do homework. They just didn't do it. Mm-hmm. And they would say, I don't want to do it takes too much time, I'm not interested in it. But it affected their grades. So then I thought, well, I do my homework, and maybe I could sell it to these kids who don't want to do it and just say, you know, copy what I did and turn it in. Mm-hmm. And I'll do that at a quarter a piece and make a few bucks, you know? So a couple things happened. One was a friend of mine, I was like a B or C student. I was not a straight A kid. So like my homework wasn't very high value, mm-hmm. necessarily.
And that evolved into, in later years, was it selling online records to DJs?
Yeah.
Which I thought was
yeah,
great.
So what happened was I was very much into DJing and like club scenes. It's like, mm-hmm. you know, not like wedding parties necessarily. And I thought, well, I want to do something online, but I want to do something related to music because I'm passionate about mm-hmm. it. And so then I thought, well, how about if I set up an online record store where people buy records online and get them shipped? And I had seen it done before, but I thought, surely there's a way to do it maybe a little less expensive and charge a little bit less and get some of that market share, mm-hmm. right? So in a weekend, I set up a prototype. And I've contacted distributors and found like there was one near my house that could bring the records in from all the various labels and then sell them to me at wholesale prices. Mm-hmm. And I set up this system where I would only buy the records when someone bought them from me, and then I would ship them as quickly as possible.
Okay, well, the hardest question then.
Okay.
Is there a book, a blog, or a podcast that you're excited about that you'd like to share with our viewers?
I do recommend the book Crushing It. I don't know if you guys have read by Gary Vee. I won't try to pronounce his last name. It's kind of insane. But I didn't read Crush It, but I've read Crushing It, and I think it's great. It's got some great advice in there. It's got great case studies of people who have used these sort of tools and tactics and had great success. Mm-hmm. So I think it's a good read. I think it's inspirational, if nothing else. And I think the thing that I really liked, the big takeaway, was that you need to be prepared to hustle, and you cannot be afraid to hustle. And sometimes that means that you do a lot of work and you don't have great results, mm-hmm. but sometimes that means you do have great results. But the thing is, if you don't keep trying, if you don't keep at it, then it's never going to happen. And right. I think that's one of the great things that Gary Vee keeps saying time and time again, is that you gotta really work.
Right.
Not be afraid to work.
My guest today has been Chris Simental with Ripe Media. Chris, thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.